Welcome to Cafe Mutual YouTube channel. Friends, AUM of passive funds have been growing leaps and bounds. In fact, it has now reached close to 7 lakh crore. So in such a scenario, should you consider recommending passive funds to your clients? To help us understand this, today we have with us Samir Desai, National Lead ETF Retail, Nippon India Mutual Fund. Samir has over 3 decades of experience in financial services industry. So without wasting time, let's welcome Samir. Good morning, Samir bhai.
Thanks, Nishan. Good to be back to your show again.
Great. So Samir bhai, while the AUM of passive funds have been growing by leaps and bounds, it has mostly come from institutional set of clients. So of the total 6.57 lakh crore of AUM in passive funds, retail investors hardly account for 2% of the total AUM. So what are the three things that the industry can do to attract retail money in this passive space?
So Nishant, we have to agree that the nomenclature passive funds includes both the passive formats, that is ETFs or exchange traded funds, as well as index funds. Now, data shows us that passive funds are being used across the client spectrum. That is right from the government disinvestment program for select CPSEs to the EPFO pension funds, insurance companies, HNIs, treasuries, family offices, and retail investors. In fact, of the huge quantum of demat accounts opened in the last 2-3 years, a lot of those retail investors have participated in the capital markets through the ETF route. So that's a passive route. Okay. Also, if we see the number of passive folios as a percentage of the total mutual fund folios, then that number has also grown rapidly. In fact, let me give you an actual example. So in the ETF space, in March 2015, the total folio, that is the ETF folio count, as a percentage of the total mutual fund folios was 1.7%. This has gone up to 11.7% as of November 2022. If I have to quote the absolute numbers, it has gone up from 700,000 or 7 lakhs to almost 1.6 crores currently. So that's almost a 23-fold jump in the last few years. So this is an example of how retail investors have increased their exposure to the capital markets through the passive routes. In fact, entities like fintechs have played a pioneering role in deepening the penetration of passive. And we are confident that as the awareness of the advantages of passive funds is more well known through investor education and other such programs, we will see more and more retail participation in the passive space.
So Samir bhai, we all know that index fund offer low trail income to MFDs. So how can index funds make business sense for MFDs?
So Nishant, regular plans of index funds offer a decent trail income. In fact, right from day one, when an investor buys those funds. But I think the biggest benefit of passive funds is that they are simple, easy to understand. They offer a market rate of return, of course, net of tracking error and expense ratios, and they are a hedge against underperformance. So if I, as an MFD, if I have to increase my business, if more and more financialization of savings is happening, then to reach a large quantum of investors, it is very important to include passive funds because of their simplicity. Okay. So this is one of the key reasons. In fact, as the financialization of savings goes up and more money flows to active managers, it is very difficult for a fund manager to keep finding ideas to keep generating alpha. And I am going to quote Jason Zweig, the famous Wall Street Journal columnist, who once said that when a fund manager goes from absorbing a trickle of cash flow to drinking from a fire hose to surfing a tsunami, his past performance loses all relevance. Okay, so as the fund bloats in size, it is very tough for an active manager to keep finding ideas to generate superior returns over the indices. Also, broad indices in India, I think, have been given a return higher than inflation, which is the primary purpose for investing in, for example, equities. Indexes are also asset class representative portfolios. So, for example, Nifty 50 is designed to capture the behavior and properties of the large cap segment in India. Okay. Likewise, mid cap 150 is designed to capture the properties, behavior of the mid cap segment. So asset allocation becomes very easy using various indices. So I think all these reasons are good enough for an MFD to include passives in their portfolio. And if I have to conclude, I'll say that index funds give stability to a client's portfolio. Their simplicity and longevity makes it very suitable for a wide client base because the service levels required are not very high. So you don't have to answer too many questions, which an MFD may have to answer for active funds. So I think all these reasons are important for MFDs to consider passive. Long-term SIPs, for example, one can logically do it into index funds because there is no question of underperformance. You may not know the future outperformer, but at least you will not underperform.
So Samir bhai, we have understood the benefits of, recommending passive funds so far. But what are the three things that MFDs can do to integrate passives in their business?
See, I think the most important starting point for an MFD is to practice what we call the core and satellite asset allocation for their clients. I think that is what should be their focus. We believe that the core allocation should be in passive index funds because they are low cost, can provide market return, a return which can be consistently captured going forward. I don't know whether an active fund will outperform or underperform. So that's very difficult to predict in the present. But I know that in a passive fund, I am at least certainly going to capture the market rate of return going forward. So it's a hedge against underperformance, as I said earlier. And this is becoming very prominent, at least in the large and mid cap segments in India. Okay. So I think all in all, there are enough passive building blocks available across equities, commodities, and fixed income today for an MFD to construct portfolios using passives and to practice logical asset allocation.
Samir bhai, one last question. So in a way, the construction of index happens actively based on certain parameters. In fact, Daniel Crosby, in his latest book, The Laws of the Wealth, says that passive funds are actively created. So what's your comment on this?
So I completely disagree, first of all, and allow me to explain why I say so. First of all, Nishant, you will agree that there is absolutely no domain or field in which one can completely eliminate human intervention. Even artificial intelligence requires some amount of human intervention. Supposing, when we say that an aircraft is flying on autopilot, it is in the presence of human pilots. Okay. So human intervention is there in all endeavors of life. Similarly, in the field of investments, there is bound to be an index committee which is engaged in index construction. However, it is important to understand their objectives and motivations. Unlike fund managers, the objective of an index committee is not to construct an index portfolio for generating alpha. Okay. The index committee constructs a portfolio based on predefined index criteria. Okay. So, and the index is a portfolio which is designed to represent an asset class. Okay, so it's an asset class representative portfolio. For example, mid-cap 150 represents the mid-cap segment in India. Likewise, small-cap 250 index represents the small-cap segment. And so also for, let's say, the bank index, the pharma index, the auto index, and other indices. So they are asset class representative portfolios. So the index committee, unlike fund manager, has no favorites or hate list. See, there are no emotions involved in stock selection. The index committee is stock agnostic. It strictly, goes by the index construction parameters, and they remain constant in any market cycle. So I think this is the important point or the important difference to understand between index construction committee, the job of an index construction committee, and a fund manager. And if I may conclude by saying this, again to quote Jason Zweig, that alpha has always been perishable. In today's world of instantaneous information, it has the shelf life of unrefrigerated fish. I think this is reason enough to go for passive and include and make passive an important part of asset allocation.
Great, great. So with that, we have come to an end to this interesting session. Thank you so much, Samir Bhai, for such an insightful discussion.
Thank you, Nishan, for having me over. It's always a pleasure to be at Cafe Mutual.
So one point that I would like to highlight, that since you have said that by integrating passives, MFDs can actually, take their communication from product to solution, because there is no need to talk about product then.
Yes, absolutely. I think you said it. You hit the nail on the head. And I think the prime driver of investment returns, which is asset allocation,
Right.
is, I think, what passive helps you to focus on that. So I think that's very important.
Great, great. Thank you so much. And finally, I thank each one of you for being such a wonderful audience. Have a great day, guys.